I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Megan and I had a pretty good marriage, at least I thought so. We got married 5 years ago, and for the most part, things were smooth. We had our disagreements, sure, but nothing major. We had a pretty active social life, a nice house, good jobs. Honestly, I believed she was faithful. She swore she was loyal, and I trusted her completely. That's why it hit me so hard when I started noticing little things, texts on her phone that she'd brush off, quick glances at her when she thought I wasn't paying attention. I figured maybe I was overthinking, but then I saw the change in her behavior. Megan has always been a bit bitchy, always throwing little jabs, acting like she's the queen of the world. But lately, she's been more distant. She started coming home late from work more often, claiming she was just working late, but her stories didn't always add up. She'd suddenly be secretive about her phone, hiding it when I came into the room. Small things, but enough to plant a seed of doubt. I tried to ignore it, told myself I was being paranoid. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It all came to a head one night about a month ago. I was away on a business trip overseas, been doing that for a few weeks, and I was supposed to be back last weekend. Megan had been acting weird even before I left. She had this strange smirk on her face when I said goodbye, like she knew something I didn't. I didn't think much of it at the time. But when I finally got back, I couldn't help but notice her phone kept ringing with texts I couldn't see. She'd hurriedly hide it whenever I got near. That's when I decided to do some digging. I knew I shouldn't have, but I felt something was wrong and I needed to find out. One night we were watching TV and she left her phone unattended on the couch. I hesitated for a moment, then grabbed it and started scrolling through her messages. I saw the usual stuff with her friends, some work emails. But then I saw a message thread with someone I didn't recognize, and what I read made my blood run cold. It was from her boss, Jake, and they were talking about last summer, about the cabin, about how they had such a great time, and how she was glad it was just the two of them. My stomach clenched. I skimmed more, and that's when I saw them discussing plans to meet again in secret. That's when I knew. Megan slept with her boss at our family cabin last summer. That's why she was so secretive lately. That's why she'd been lying. I couldn't believe it. After all the promises, the vows, she did this behind my back. I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and disbelief. I kept reading, desperate to understand what kind of person she really was. How could she lie to my face, cheat on me with someone she works for, at the place I thought was our sanctuary? The betrayal cut deep. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure what I'd say or how I'd feel when I saw her face again after knowing this. So I took a deep breath, closed her phone, and waited for her to come home. I wasn't prepared for what was coming next, but I knew I could keep this secret anymore. The truth was out. When Megan finally walked through the door that evening, I could see she was tense. She was trying to act normal, but her eyes kept darting around as if she knew I had something on her. I was boiling inside, but I kept my voice controlled at first. I asked her how her day was, how her work was going, all the small talk that I knew was just a front. Then I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "We need to talk. Now." Her face paled and she hesitated for a second, trying to brush it off, but I wasn't letting her off the hook that easily. I pulled out her phone and showed her the messages. Her reaction was instant. Her eyes widened, and then she started to lie, of course. "That's not what it looks like," she spat out, crossing her arms defensively. "You're overreacting like always. It's just work stuff, I swear. Jake's just a friend, a stupid mistake, nothing more." But I wasn't buying it. I had already read enough to know that it was more than just friendly texts. They were talking about last summer, the cabin, the secret meetings, the sex, all of it. Her explanation sounded hollow and her tone was bitchy, the way she always got when she was trying to manipulate her way out of trouble. I pressed her further, asking how she could lie to my face, how she could betray me like this. That's when she started with the usual excuses. How I wasn't good enough anymore, how she felt trapped, how she needed more excitement in her life. She told me I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of something crazy, and that she'd never cheat on me. I saw the anger simmering beneath her words, but I also saw the guilt behind her eyes. She tried to turn the tables, making it seem like I was the one at fault, like I'd been neglectful or distant. But I knew better. I knew she'd been sneaking around, lying and sleeping with her boss right here at our family cabin while I was working overseas, thinking I was building a future for us. That night was the worst of my life. I felt a mixture of everything: anger, heartbreak, disgust. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily, so convincingly? I was shaking, trying to keep my composure, but inside I was screaming. I kept asking myself if I had missed the signs, if I had been blind, if I had failed somehow. The betrayal was too raw, and I couldn't understand how someone I loved and trusted could do something so cruel. She cried, of course, acting all innocent, saying she was sorry, that it was just a mistake, that Jake had pressured her, that she didn't mean for it to go so far. But to me, her words sounded hollow. I didn't believe her, not anymore. I realized that trust, which I thought was unbreakable, was shattered beyond repair. The woman I married was capable of lying to my face and sleeping around with her boss at the very place I thought was our retreat. It wasn't just an affair. It felt like a complete betrayal of everything I believed in. After that night, I felt like I was living in a fog. I kept replaying everything in my head: her lies, her tears, her words. I was lost in a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me wanted to break everything, to scream, to shout, to make her feel as awful as I felt. But I also knew I couldn't act on impulse. I needed a plan, some kind of revenge, or at least a way to regain control of my life. I couldn't keep going like this, not knowing if she was still lying, if she was still hiding something. I needed to figure out what to do next, but I knew one thing for sure: I was done trusting her. Done with the lies, the betrayal, the false promises. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. And I was left standing there, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. The days that followed were a blur of confusion, anger, and a strange sense of numbness. I couldn't focus on anything, and every time I looked at Megan, I saw the woman I thought I knew, only she was a stranger now. I kept going over everything I'd seen, trying to find some kind of way to process it. The worst part was the betrayal, knowing she had lied so convincingly, that she had slept with her boss at our family cabin, of all places. That place used to be our sanctuary, a getaway from the world. Now it felt like a graveyard of our trust. I couldn't just sit around, waiting to see what she would say or do next. I had to confront her again, get some clarity, though I already had enough to know that nothing she said would make this better. I sat her down one afternoon, and I could see the defensive wall instantly go up. She was trying to act like she was the victim, crying and begging, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew everything, that I saw the texts, that I knew she slept with Jake last summer, and that I wasn't going to pretend it didn't happen. Her reaction was classic Megan. She started to lie again, digging her heels in, trying to act like I was crazy, like I'd misunderstood. "You're imagining things," she snapped, her bitchiness bubbling to the surface. "You're always accusing me of stuff, and I'm tired of your accusations. Jake's just a friend, and you don't have any proof of anything else." But she knew I had the texts. I showed them to her again, right there on my phone, and watched her squirm. Her face went red, her eyes flickering with guilt and anger. I asked her why she did it, why she cheated at the cabin, why she lied to me for months. She shrugged, trying to minimize everything. "It was just sex," she said. "A mistake, a moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything. Jake's just a guy who knows how to push the right buttons. Besides, I was bored, I needed something different." Her tone was bitter, almost bitchy, like I was supposed to understand. I wanted to scream at her. How could she be so callous? How could she treat our marriage like it was nothing? I'd always believed she was loyal, and now I saw her for what she really was: a woman who fucked her boss at our family cabin and then lied about it. The emotional toll was staggering. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and deeply hurt. The woman I loved, who I thought loved me, had been sleeping with her boss and hiding it from me all this time. Every tiny detail of our life together felt like a lie. I could eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. I was trying to hold back tears and rage at the same time. I kept asking myself how I could have missed the signs, how I'd been so blind. I'd always prided myself on being a good husband, someone who paid attention, who cared. But I'd missed the biggest betrayal of all. I started to question everything. Was she still lying? Was she still hiding other things? Was she still sleeping around behind my back? The trust was so broken that I felt like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I knew I had to do something different. I couldn't keep going like this, waiting for her to confess or for her to change. I needed to decide if I was going to forgive her or if I was going to cut my losses and get out. But deep down, I knew nothing would be the same again. That woman I once loved was gone, replaced by someone I couldn't recognize. Now I was left with the painful task of figuring out my next move, knowing full well that everything had changed forever. After that confrontation, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind kept circling back to the same questions. What now? Could I even trust her anymore? The answer was obvious, but accepting it was another matter entirely. I realized I couldn't keep living in this limbo, constantly questioning, doubting, waiting for her to slip up again. I needed to take control of my life, even if it meant making a terrible choice. It was around then that I started to plan my next move. I didn't want to just walk away without anything. Revenge had started to look tempting, even necessary. Not because I was petty, but because I needed to feel some sense of justice, some way to balance the scales. I'd caught her cheating, and I wasn't going to let her think she could get away with it. That same night, I decided to find out if she was still hiding things. She was bitchy and manipulative, always trying to spin her lies, but I was determined to see if there was more she wasn't telling me. I started secretly checking her emails, her social media accounts, just small things but enough to give me a clearer picture. I wanted to know if she was still seeing Jake or if she was planning to do it again. What I found was unsettling. There were messages, not as blatant as before, but enough to confirm that she was still in contact with him, flirting, even planning to meet up again. She was trying to act like everything was fine, but her texts betrayed her. She was fooling herself if she thought I wouldn't find out. That's when I made a decision. I would not let her manipulate me anymore. I knew I had to hit her where it hurt, her ego, her sense of control. I wanted her to see that her actions had consequences. I started gathering evidence, taking screenshots of the messages, saving all the texts and emails. I wanted to be ready when the time came to make her face the reality of what she'd done. I also started talking to a lawyer just to understand my options. I wasn't planning to file for divorce right away, but I wanted to be prepared just in case. Meanwhile, Megan sensed I was onto her. She started acting even more bitchy, throwing tantrums, trying to gaslight me into doubting what I knew. "You're paranoid," she snapped one night. "You're just jealous Jake has a better life." But I knew better. I knew she was still lying, still sneaking around. Every time she tried to turn it around on me, I felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about protecting myself, standing up for what was right. I knew I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into forgiving her easily. This betrayal cut deep, and I needed to see her truly face what she'd done. I was ready for the fallout, whatever it might be. I wasn't going to be the fool who got played for years. I was tired of feeling like I was just a pawn in her game. I wanted her to know I wasn't going to take this lying down. I had to do something to end this nightmare and reclaim my dignity. The revenge I was contemplating wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about reclaiming my life, my trust, and my self-respect. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it yet, but I knew I had to act soon. The decision to act was made. In the quiet hours of the night, I sat there, phone in hand, reviewing everything I'd gathered, screenshots, texts, even some emails. It was a strange feeling, knowing I had all this evidence, but at the same time feeling helpless. Megan was still acting the same way, bitchy, defiant, trying to push me away, but I knew her game now. She thought she could lie her way out of everything, but I wasn't going to let her anymore. So I started planning. I decided I'd have the ultimate confrontation, the kind that would leave her with no room to deny anything. I wanted her to see that I knew everything, that she couldn't manipulate her way out of this. The day came when I finally arranged to meet her at the house, pretending everything was normal. But I had a different plan. I knew I needed to catch her in the act, or at least make her realize I wasn't playing around anymore. That morning, I left my phone recording, just enough to catch her reactions if she slipped up. I also set up a hidden camera in the living room. I wanted visual proof of her behavior, her lies, her attitude. When she came home, I greeted her casually, but I was already on high alert. She was bitchy from the start, trying to brush past me, acting like she didn't have a care in the world. I kept my cool, but inside I was seething. I knew she was hiding something, and I was determined to get it out of her. The moment came when I asked her outright about Jake, about last summer. Her reaction was immediate. She started to deny everything, but I already had the evidence. I played the recordings, the texts, all the proof I'd gathered. Her face drained of color and her bitchy attitude shifted into outright anger. "You're crazy," she spat. "You're just jealous. You're overreacting because you're never here." But I could see the panic behind her eyes. She was trying to spin it, to manipulate me again, but I wasn't buying any of her lies anymore. I told her I was done pretending, that I knew the truth, that I wasn't going to be played like a fool. She tried to deny the obvious, to turn the tables, but it was pointless. I was tired of her bullshit. I told her I was planning to leave and that she'd better prepare herself. Her bitchy mask cracked for a second and I saw the real her, the angry, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with anything. I didn't want to hurt her, but I knew I had to make her understand I wasn't going to be lied to anymore. That day, I realized I had the power now, that I didn't have to be the victim of her lies. I was going to take back control, even if it meant breaking everything we'd built. I knew the aftermath wouldn't be easy. She'd fight me, probably try to turn the situation around, but I was done being the fool. This was my life, and I refused to let her ruin it any further. I saw clearly now her true nature, her manipulations, and I was ready to walk away or fight for what was right. I wasn't sure yet what the final step would be, but one thing was certain. I was no longer going to be blind to her bullshit. After that day of confrontation, everything changed. Megan's bitchy facade was replaced by a mixture of anger and desperation. She knew I had the evidence, and she knew I was serious about leaving. I was tired of the lies, tired of feeling like I was walking on eggshells every time she threw a tantrum or spun her stories. The truth was out in the open now, and there was no going back. I told her I was done, that I couldn't trust her, and that I was going to file for divorce. She tried to manipulate me, to guilt me into staying, but I wasn't falling for it. The aftermath was messy, of course. She threw tantrums, calling me controlling and paranoid, trying to paint herself as the victim. But I stood my ground. I knew what she was, an unfaithful, manipulative woman who thought she could get away with anything. I started packing my things, preparing to leave the house that once felt like our sanctuary. The final blow came when I handed her the divorce papers, telling her I was done with the lies, the betrayal, and her false promises. I saw her face twist in anger and disbelief, and for a moment I felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally taken control of my life again. Cleaning out the house was emotional but also freeing. Every corner, every piece of furniture reminded me of the woman I thought I knew, but I also knew I had done the right thing. I learned that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair. Megan's betrayal was the end of my innocence, but it also marked a new beginning for me, one where I could finally start to heal and move forward. In the weeks that followed, I focused on myself. I spoke to friends, sought therapy, and took time to understand what I needed, mentally, emotionally, physically. The pain of betrayal doesn't go away overnight, but I learned to accept it as part of my story. I realized that sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself. Megan's lie changed my life forever, but it also taught me something valuable. I deserve honesty and respect, and I won't settle for anything less. Looking back, I see how blind I was for so long. I trusted her because I loved her, but that trust was misplaced. Now I'm more cautious, more aware of what real fidelity and respect look like. I hope others in similar situations realize that it's okay to walk away, that you don't have to accept betrayal or lies just to hold onto something that's already dead. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply walking away and reclaiming your dignity. That's what I did, and I've never felt freer.